purchase of what we refer to as the Maverik property. The FAA's indicated they're loading their checkbooks, and we need to get a grant application in so that we can get reimbursed. In this particular, the last time this was brought forward, there was concern about, well, demolition of the building and having more precise details. In this grant application, there's money there to reimburse the city for the purchase of the land and the engineering assistance with the paperwork on that. But in this application, there's also another $50,000 for the proposal of cutting an opening on the curb, building a concrete pad, and then fencing the remaining portion of the property. What's in there right now in front of a 6-foot chain link fence, but I know that we're talking with Heidi that's not harmonious with what she'd like the property to look like. I tried to call the FAA today to say, could we use that money to put in a 3-rail fence or something like that? And you know, maybe remove the chain link fence. It's on Highway 189. I have not yet heard back from them. The FAA's made it clear that absent there being a wildlife problem on the property that needs to be abated, that there's no financial assistance with landscaping of the property.
Well, what about on the deer?
Well, the good news is that if deer get on the property, it's not within the confines of the airport, so they probably won't get hurt.
Less too many of them congregate, then it's a risk.
And I did see 4 up west of Main Street on Tuesday in George Bent's backyard. But, I think the council needs to decide if they, I think this is our opportunity to get assistance to fence the property if that's what we want to do. I mean, from a staff standpoint, we thought if we're going to start storing materials in that building, it may be nice to have it more secure, where it's less accessible to the public. But from an aesthetic standpoint, that's contradictory to the stated goal of some of the council.
I'll just make a point here, just because I brought it up. I don't mind there being a fence around a parking lot area for the building further south. But it's frustrating to me to see a 6-foot chain link fence put in all the way around that corner and turn it into a weed patch. Plus remove the other fence that's there. I don't understand that. I prefer to move the fence down by the building so the building's secure, but that we have that kind of open space there that could be maintained by the parks. You know, not a weed patch, maybe a beautiful entryway for our city.
So maybe what I'd like to request is if the council would approve the grant application, understand they'll only reimburse us for what we spend, and if the council chooses a less expensive option, we'll just get less money back. We'll spend less money on the fence. That at least gets us closer to getting reimbursed for the $1.382 million that we used to purchase the property.
Would moving the fence in and allowing for 3, 4, 6, whatever is aesthetically beautiful strip that could be landscaped, is the FAA saying it has to be on the perimeter, or they've already approved the fence, can we move it in a bit?
They haven't approved it yet. We're just making it. I've talked to them and I gave me the impression that they would support funding for the placement of a fence on that property.
Well, that's what they've said about 1.4 million. They haven't approved that yet, right?
Well, they can't fund it until we give them an application.
Do they specify it being a chain link fence or could it be a nice fence?
That's the conversation I tried to have today. I did talk to Armstrong Consulting about that very issue earlier today, and they said, I don't know that they would care. But I understand you got one shot at it.
Right, but we're going along with their wishes. It's a key place when you're entering our community, and to just leave a weed patch there, I feel like we need to do something. And if they won't pay for it, we're going to have to do something rather than just leave a weed patch at this entrance and it's a crossroads of the parkway. It just seems like we need to make it look as nice as possible.
So I think I think we may have some options on what kind of fence and where we locate the fence. I haven't had, the conversation with FAA to understand any concerns that they might have with that. But I guess my recommendation is that we submit the application and work through that and determine what we ultimately want to end up with and what assistance we can get from the FAA to do it.
I'm assuming that if they realized that we wanted to tear down a perfectly good fence that was already surrounding the airport on that side, and then build another applicable fence, that same kind of fence all the way around the corner, I'm assuming that they would not appreciate tearing down the perfectly good fence just to build the other fence. So I'm thinking that we should probably leave the perfectly good fence in place and then just do it around the building as an additional fence. Because I can see how they'd say, why are you tearing down a perfectly good fence? Well, that's just the way I think.
I don't know how to respond. I would think they would probably prefer for the property to be entirely fenced rather than just a portion of it. But I haven't had that conversation, so I don't know with certainty.
Speaking to the application, I know I brought this up earlier when this was put forward, I guess. But I'm just going to bring it up again and you can respond. But in section A, item number 9, will the assistance requested cause the displacement of, and I'll skip individual family businesses? The answer is no. I guess presumably since we've already bought it, we're not displacing it. But the whole process here did displace a Maverik. And so I just, as Armstrong understanding, I mean, of course they know this application, they filled it out, I suppose. But are we not displacing a business?
I don't think so. 2 reasons. One is the Maverik was never established. You can't displace something that never existed. The other reason is that the business building that was on the property has been set vacant for years. And yes, we do own the property now. So I don't think that we're displacing anything that would fall into that category.
Have you run it by FAA or Armstrong or just?
Well, the FAA and Armstrong are familiar with the situation, and certainly neither one have brought that up as an issue.
Okay, thank you.
Just one more, please. I hope I can phrase this correctly. I'm so sorry. I'm blanking. It's late. Oh, yes. Okay, here we go. I think our city crews could remove the tall chain link fence that's along Highway 189. I think they could take that down pretty easily. And then we wouldn't have to apply for it in the grant. And then we could just put the fence further to the south and keep a perfectly good fence that's already surrounding the airport property. I'm also concerned about the billboards that are on this property and how long is the lease for those billboards? And are we controlling that lease now that we own the property?
So the billboard is not on this property. The billboard was on property that was acquired by UDOT when they bought the right-of-way for Heber Parkway, and they donated that property, which is part of where the stormwater retention basin is for the stormwater. So it's not within the confines of this land. And I don't know the details on the agreement, to be honest with you. I know we get a check once a month, but I don't know the terms of the lease that exists with the billboard.
So even if you do try to landscape that area, then the UDOT easement will stay a weed patch with the billboards? Or can we, ask them to do something to make sure it blends in?
It's our property, we can do what we want, but we have a lease agreement that we have to honor for the billboard.
And I don't know that the FAA would be interested in fencing that part of the property. That's not something that was required It was, UDOT purchased it and gave it to us.
So you own it right now,
Yeah.
but UDOT did the billboard lease.
No, it was the previous property owner.
Same one that's selling the property now to Maverik and now to us, right?
I think we should figure out what the billboard lease is. And so we do own the land under the billboard lease. And we can landscape it.
Yes.
Okay, that's good news. Okay.
Let's get back to what we briefly were talking about. This is the application. The council will approve the grant application, the FAA on.
Well, this is my concern about the fence construction and so forth. I would hope the council would, further consider the fencing issue, even though there's a total amount for quite a bit right now. I don't know if we need to spend all of that and look further into, I'd like to make that motion that we look further into the fencing and try to save money there, use city crews as much as possible, but try to work towards that goal of having a very pleasant, lovely entryway in as far as the FAA regulations will allow.
And I'm happy to have that conversation with the FAA to see what flexibility we have there.
That's an issue we can solve later. Yeah. The application or not.
I think we should approve it so that we can get this ball rolling, get our money as soon as possible. But knowing that this is,
$1.3 million.
yeah, we gotta get this moving. And then this will be a part of the conversation. And we can get as much money as we can. If we don't spend it, we go, here, we saved you a couple $1,000. Couldn't we do it that way? Or we have to tell them exactly how many square feet their fence and exactly.
Well, it may be such that they may want for us to have the fence bid out so we know what the final costs are before they write the grant and we know exactly what the full reimbursement is.
Well, then we couldn't do this right now. That's
Well,
exactly what you've put here is a 6-foot
So
tube.
this is just saying we're requesting this much money. But if it comes in $10,000 less than this, we'll just write a grant for that much less. Until we get a grant application into them,
So we can make a motion to approve it, knowing that there's some flexibility with the fence. I'll make that motion.
Second. Motion by Councilor Carter to approve the 2016 FAA grant application, second by Councilor Smith. Any discussion on the motion?
Mr. Mayor?
All in favor, say aye.
No, wait a second.
Yes. What did come up?
I'm just going to try to take
Nay. Oh,
Wait, excuse me. Opposed? Yeah. You take a nay?
yes, sir.
I have four affirmatives, one nay from Councilmember Cook.
I just wondered, if the FAA on this, if they approve this grant application and you get that grant money, if they want to require something that would move toward the C2 airport.
no,
Okay.
there's nothing associated with it.
There's no nexus between the land and the.
Just one other thing on that, the master plan, reading from the FAA's advisory circular, it was posted on the internet. The function of master plan studies, airport master plans are prepared to support the modernization or expansion of existing airports or the creation of a new airport. So the question there is, do you need a master plan or just a plan update?
I think it was talked about earlier when Mel was here, Marlene, the next was due in 2017. The airport advisory board is currently looking at the new master plan for that airport. They'll put a list of items that are on there. I do think if you did look at that master plan recommendation that wasn't on there, maybe an expansion would have to be still approved from the council. The council hasn't received it yet.
And it could include like the development of other hangar areas. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to end up with a different configuration of the airport. The geometry of the runway and the taxiway.
Does it mean upgrading to C2?
I suspect that'll be part of the discussion, but I say that
That's what this
it
says.
doesn't have to. There's other parts of the airport that we plan. There's a terminal area drawing that talks about how we're going to develop the land on the airport to support business or additional hangars.
But is
That's
Dennis,
just a component of it.
is Dennis misreading that? Or could we have a master plan update rather than a whole new master plan? He just read, he's out of context, I don't know, but I just heard it
I
say.
don't know the answer to that. I know that they expect those documents to be forward-looking. It's, that
Which
the airport development plan funding will be associated with whatever the master plan is.
Well, and this very plainly states that that's the reason for creation of a master plan is an update or an upgrade of the airport, expansion of the airport.
So, the update was going to be on last year. It was moved for funding purposes into 2016, 17, I guess. Is Nadeem accurate at all, or close, or whatever, in that we have to do this every 20 years? Where he read it's really for the purpose of expanding, upgrade, and so could we go another 5 if we chose to?
I don't know the answer to the question, Ron. I'd be shooting for me.
Could you give me that answer?
So when does it expire? When does the master plan expire?
Well, we had the last, I want to say the last update was in 2005, so
Well, this,
25, right?
Yeah, it's not what it is.
Yeah.
There you go.
this circular has instructions for master plans and master plan updates and for
Airport layout.
airport layout plan, yeah.
Thank you.
Unless you're going to expand, it doesn't seem like you need a master plan.
Well, we should have a document that has an expiration date.
I know that the last, we updated the terminal area drawing a few years ago, probably 2 or 3. I think I'll say the last master plan update was 2005. That's when we had this discussion, first discussion on C2, B2. And it was not that B2.
Well, Nadeem seemed rather certain on the 20 years. That.
So I'll have to check into that.
If
He also
you could
said
let
it
us
was
know.
2017.
Yeah, I know. If you could let us know what that is in an email or something.
Mr. Ashford, no need to go to closed session tonight. There.
Mr. Mayor, may I take just 2 minutes to make a correction to the circumstance of my partner at the Strauss Place?
Yes, take a minute.
It won't take long. There were 5 of us who were partners in that Yak 52 that crashed out by Memorial Hill on January 16, 2003. The annual maintenance was done on that in October, not in Nevada, but in Spanish Fork, Utah. I was lucky enough, because I was persistent enough, as you know, that the National Transportation Safety Board actually asked me to participate in the inspection of the aircraft. The Yak 52 is a Russian-designed airplane, but this one was built in Czechoslovakia. And what we found out through my research is that within the previous year, another Yak had crashed in California like that. One leg had almost crashed but recovered in Alabama, another in New York, another one in England. And I've talked to all those people in those locations. There was no mechanical problem in that. It wasn't because we took that aircraft to some cheap
Fly-by-night.
everything like that. It was a viable place where we took it. It was a design flaw. I have a copy of the accident report if any of you want to see that. I'm very offended that the FBO would use that as some kind of excuse why we should be going down and see some kind of error. There was no mechanical failure in that airplane. It was a design flaw. And I just want to, Ed was a great pilot. The backseat was Bob Cox, another really good friend of mine. We worked together for 30 years. I love those guys, and I don't like him using that kind of example. That's absolutely out of line. Thank you.
Let me please express my condolences for going through that and having it brought up in this way, you know, as a supposedly a public fact, and it was not.
It's not a fact. I can give you all the data you want on
I'm
this.
sorry.
Appreciate it.
I apologize as well, Paul, and I appreciate your input. To me as a councilman, I mean, if we're talking about who's offended who, I think that needs to be noted that you were offended.
Thank you.
Kind of close the regular meeting. We'll go back to our work meeting for a few minutes. Art's been staying there all the time to sleep, talk to us.